Kyd the Band. What's up, Devin?
Hey man, how's it going? How are you?
Good. So when you have a project like Kyd the Band, do you have a lot of people kind of wondering, what should I call him, Devin, or should I call him Kyd the Band?
Yeah, you know what's funny is I get kid a lot, and I've never come out and explicitly said you have to call me kid, or just call me Devin or whatever. I just if I'm touring, then every show I'm just like, hey, I'm Kyd the Band. And then from there on out, it's up to people, whatever they want to call me. So
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. I like Kyd. So Kyd, tell us, how'd you get into music to begin with?
yeah, I actually grew up playing drums in the church. My family's super involved in the church. My dad's a preacher, and I started playing drums when I was like a little kid. And we kind of had a small church, so you I started playing every Sunday pretty quick.
How
And
old were you when you started doing that?
I think it was like 9 or 10.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I just remember from being like a toddler, I just always loved the drums, and I don't know if that had to do with the fact that kind of like the church I grew up in, my older cousin was the drummer, and he was amazing, and so I just was always fascinated with drums. And then my parents got me a kit, and then I started playing in church, and that's kind of how it started. And then my brother played guitar, and he's actually who I initially started doing music with. And I started singing around like 15 or 16 in the choir. I never really considered myself a singer. I was in the tenor section, and I couldn't really get the harmony parts for the tenor parts. So I would either lip sync or sing lead, which is at that point, why am I in the choir? Because I'm not serving any purpose or really helping
Right.
any of the harmony. But yeah, that's how it started.
I feel like 9 or 10 years old, so that's like a fifth grader playing drums in the church band. Was that kind of a novelty? Like this kid's playing drums, or was that something more typical at the church you were going?
I would say it wasn't like a common thing, but our church had like 50, 60 people in it, and nobody else could play drums. Kind of like, well, you can kind of play drums, so yeah, you're up.
Nice. So you're playing a little in church and and lip syncing when needed.
Yeah.
How did you go from that? So obviously, you'd been involved in music for a long time and you liked it enough to be doing it.
Yeah.
Where did you go from how'd you go from doing that in church to, making your own music?
Yeah. I remember when I was 16, my friends in the church and my brother and I started like our own first band, and it was, strictly Christian music. And that was kind of the first experience I had with writing, songs, and doing an artist or band thing. And then when I was 18, I actually left the church and just started to try to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life, and what I was passionate about. And I started songwriting more, and I kind of realized that was the thing that was kind of getting me through and kind of getting me out of bed every day. And so I just started to chase it. Yeah, I never, up until that point, I never thought about music as a career, just because I think when I was a teenager, I wanted to play baseball. And
Mm.
then I thought I was going to be like in ministry of some sort. And neither of those things happened. And life kind of took a turn. And so music became kind of like a refuge for me, and I just dove into all kinds of music that was that I really wasn't listening to growing up, either because it wasn't Christian and I wasn't allowed to listen to it, or I just was never exposed to it. So I just dove into it, and I started writing. And I was in Sacramento at the time, which is where I was raised, and just trying to figure out, well, how do you go from just loving music and just kind of being passionate about it and make it's like a hobby. How do you turn that into like an actual job? I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't even know the first steps to take. And so I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to have the internet. I have YouTube, and I can probably find out a lot that way. So I'm just going to try to educate myself. And try to get somewhere in it. And so that's kind of how I started. And I just started writing songs. And at first I was just like, I want to be an artist, but I realized I don't have like some like massive online following, or like I don't have like a viral video. And so I was just gonna like, well, from what I researched, like you can be a writer and kind of get your foot in the door that way. And so I was like, well, I can do that. And, or at least I think that seems like an accessible route for me. And so I started like just writing songs, and I had one demo recorded, and I reached out. I started scouring the internet for like email contacts of people in the industry, just like finding anybody I could and just like hitting them up and being like, hey, I'm an artist out of Sacramento, and I'm not sure if you're looking for anything new, but here's my press kit, and here is like a recent song. But it was like the only song I had.
Right. How
And
that early? How was the production on that that track that you were sending out?
honestly, man, I was leasing beats off the internet.
Oh, okay, so they
Yeah,
sounded pretty decent then,
I
combined with
mean,
your writing.
it's decent, and the writing was terrible. The thing I had going for like that one song is like I got it recorded, kind of like from at like a professional studio, so it sounded okay, as okay as a terrible song could sound. But I just I would rent beats for like $10 a beat, just because I needed something to write over and
Yeah.
record. Like, I grew up playing drums. I didn't get into guitar until later, and like piano, and so it wasn't enough to really chunk out some production. But it was just like I need some music, so that's why I started renting beats.
Yeah, I mean, use what you can, while you got it. But the
Yeah.
one thing that you said that was interesting, and I find very interesting, is the fact that you didn't have a whole lot of influences early on, because you're going to church and you weren't listening to secular music or non-religious music. So how was that? I feel like that's kind of a cool perspective, because in a way, you aren't, you're not overly influenced by what's going on commercially. So, you kind of get maybe a more organic sound out of, whatever's true to you, or maybe you're bringing in those musical influences that you got from church or from religious music.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where you were getting your influences, if not commercial music.
Yeah, I mean, the first music that I was ever exposed to was in the church, and that was black gospel music. I grew up in a
Mm,
Pentecostal church, and so like gospel music, black gospel music, and southern gospel music were the things that we played. So in a sense, I'm really thankful for that, because like I don't know if you've listened to a lot of black gospel music, but it's like some of the most kind of emotive and passionate music that I think, and it's also very musical. Just from like the amount of chords. It's like they have more than four chords in a song, and just the dynamics and the arrangement, and I don't know. It's just like it was I think it was a cool like first introduction to music. And so then when I started like just listening to music in my car and the radio, when I got my first car, that was kind of the place that I could listen to music that I wasn't allowed to listen to. And so I just listened to whatever was on the radio, and then I started diving into all kinds of music, from like 90s alternative music like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Sublime, to early 2000s like hip hop and alternative hip hop like the Gorillaz, and then just anything that's on the radio. And that's everything from like I remember hearing my first Kanye West when I was like 17 or 18, and then just whatever else. And so I feel like I didn't have like a major like kind of like vehicle driving me towards a certain artist, or like I wasn't watching TV either, and like I don't know, I didn't have any music that I owned, and so I was just kind of like trying to be a sponge. And I feel like that kind of like influenced me in a way that like I whatever my ear thought was cool and like resonated, then like that's the thing that influenced me. And that's kind of the thing that I pull into my music, is just it's very cross genre and blends a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear that in your music. And, you know, whereas it might take some artists, you know, you might be in high school and be really into one genre, and then eventually start breaking out. You know, it seems like maybe that allowed you to just kind of be open-minded from the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you mentioned, you know, gospel music is a great place to start, though. You know, a lot of people don't realize that you know, how much gospel music is in pop music now. You know,
Sure.
it made me think of I don't know if you've seen that movie Ray, but it's a great movie.
Oh,
But
great movie. Yeah.
yeah, one of my favorites. But you know, he was taking, and some people weren't too happy about it, but he was taking gospel music and turning it into pop music. And then to bring that full circle, you said you heard Kanye West. That one, you know, Kanye West sampled Ray Charles
Yeah.
for Gold Digger, you know. So you're hearing that, you know, you're hearing it even in today's pop music sampled, but even just in more organic ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's a great place to start. So after you start sending out your demos to people, did you eventually catch someone's ear?
Yeah, I remember at the time I hit up this guy named Zach Katz who was running a label called Beluga Heights. And at the time, like Jason Derulo was really like starting to pop. And I remember he responded and he was just like, "Hey man," he's like, "I really like this song. You know, would you be down to write to some beats from our like kind of like producer JR Rodham?" And I was just like, "Yeah, like he's the JR guy, right? Like, sure." I hear that on the radio, like I'll write to his beats. And so he sent me like you know, a pack of his beats, and I just start to write to those, and um, I would send him what I wrote for feedback, and I never got any placements, and nothing really ever happened from that kind of like first relationship in like an industry context. But he would critique everything that I sent him, and he would tear it apart. I mean, he would be brutally honest. He'd be like, "Man, this is terrible. Why'd you even send it?" And he'd kind of break it down and explain to me the things that it was missing and the things that maybe I could have, you know, had to make it better. And I that was really kind of invaluable to me because nobody else was like providing like feedback or like an education for me. So it was kind of like it sucked because for like 2 years I sent him songs that like just never went anywhere. But it really helped me develop as a songwriter and kind of set the platform for, you know, where I would go after that.
Yeah, that. Uh, so in a way, even though he was constantly rejecting you, he was kind of mentoring you at the same time of what you needed to work on.
Yeah, dude, and you bring up a good word, rejection. It was my first taste of that, you know, which like I think when people who like aren't familiar with how music works, they don't understand that rejection is a huge part of it. You get a lot more no's than I think you do yeses, and so that was kind of nice that like early on in my career, I was getting a taste of that just because like it really kind of helped me like develop kind of thicker skin and realize that like if I really love this, then this is going to, you know, push me to be better and help me you know, stick with this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what so many successful people say, you know, that fail more, you know, each
Right.
failure is a lesson, which in your case was literally the case. So you took that advice and where did it lead you?
So you know, I moved to LA for a couple years, and when I moved to LA, I was just like, well, I'll do some writing, and I'll try to figure myself out, figure my life out. And LA was kind of a rough time for me. And after a couple years, I decided it was kind of like it was time for a change of scenery. And I'd been to Nashville once for a writing trip and really liked it, and so I decided to move to Nashville and just focus on writing. And at the time, I was just like, well, I'll just write country pop. I'll write whatever, you know, I can get placed or just wherever I can get a foot in the door. Like that's what I'll do. And so I moved here, and then after like a couple years, my brother actually moved out, and he was like 13 months younger than me. So kind of the phase of life that I was in when I left, he had got to, and so he was just like, I want to do music. And I'd always thought like if I was going to do music as an artist, or as like a group or whatever, then it would be with him. And so he moved out and we started focusing on our stuff. And then it was just like, okay, how do we turn this into an actual thing? And so we just, we worked day jobs. I worked as an assistant to a real estate agent. He worked at GameStop. And like we had one car, my car. I'd take him to work in the morning. I'd go to my job. I'd leave, go pick him up. We'd go home and just write music all night. And just tried to build up a catalog and tried to build up, just connections that we were making really just over the internet. And we had got a couple kind of cool like email connections. One of our friends now, his name's Avedon, he's a producer. He was a progressive house artist from like the Netherlands, and he was going to LA to write. And he was like, I want to bring you guys to LA and we can write for my stuff. And we were like, sure, like love that. So we came to LA for like a week and wrote with him. And that's actually, it turned into writing for Bone Thugs and Harmony, which was this bizarre experience.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, it just kind of like snowballed, and we just kept like going with that. And then we still needed to figure out like, well, do we have to get management? Do we need to get a publishing deal? Do we try to get a record deal? Like, what steps do we take or try to take? And
sure.
So we got a manager, and that lasted for like 6 months. Nothing happened. So we parted ways, and we're like, okay, let's just get a publishing deal. Like that seems like the way that we can remedy like this problem of like wanting to get paid for music every day.
Right.
So we started reaching out around town. In Nashville, they actually have a pretty strict submission policy on like receiving unsolicited material.
Huh.
Like, if a company doesn't know you, you can't just like send them music for whatever reason, whether it's like liability reasons or they just don't want to be annoyed. I don't know. So we started sending around stuff and got in a couple meetings and ended up taking a meeting that turned into like a publishing deal offer. And so then we went full time, and it was cool because it focused on us as an artist. And, we were able to quit our jobs and just write every day. And then we changed our name from Kyle and Devin to Kyd the Band. I felt like Kyle and Devin was too much of like a Disney duo name or like a country name.
Yeah.
And then, changed to Kyd the Band. And then we kind of started to build pieces of the team around us. And then we ended up going on our first tour, started releasing music independently. And then my brother parted ways from Kyd the Band. And that was 3 years ago. And then I decided to stick on with it.
Right on, man. That was such a great summary, I think, of where you were and how you got to where you are. And and since then you've supported NF and Lennon Stella on international tours, and you're doing sold out shows, in the hometown now. Out of curiosity for myself and probably a lot of other artists, I live in Los Angeles, but you're always hearing about Nashville. That's kind of like the other music town. I've heard great things. How do you like it compared to Los Angeles?
Man, I really like Nashville because I feel like compared to LA, the quality of life is just better overall. I mean, LA has better weather, hands down.
What is the weather like that? Is it more humid out there?
It's more humid in the summers, and like right now, like today, it's like a high of 40, and it's going to be a low of like 28.
So a lot colder during the winter, huh?
A lot colder during the winter.
Yeah.
But that's really the only downside to me.
Right.
Musically, like it's nicknamed Music City, and primarily country music has been the main genre here. But over the last few years, like more than country music has happened, and like rock music is big here. Kings of Leon, Black Keys, Jack White are all here. You have a great indie scene, and like the pop scene's growing. And then you have like a small, like kind of underground, like hip hop scene. So it's more than country music, but I don't know. I think for me, the quality of life is just the reason why, I'm here. And, I go to LA probably 5 or 6 times when there's not a pandemic to work. And that seems to work out just fine. So I think, and musically it's just cool because Nashville is all about the song and like the lyrics and the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I went to LA, and I'm glad that I do go to LA a lot. And a lot of my closest kind of friends and collaborators are LA based, because I feel like LA, it's like the focus is production and melody. And I think if you can kind of like join the two and marry the two, then I think that's where at least I want to be at. And so I found like developing myself as a songwriter in Nashville was really, really instrumental.
Yeah, everything you said, I've heard from other artists also. So thanks. So tell us, Kyd. You just put out season 3, The Realization, this year. Tell us a little bit about the singles off that and the EP.
Yeah. So season 3, The Realization, is kind of like the third part of the EP series that I've been doing. The first 2 EPs were about my childhood, and then about like, going out into the world on my own, and like trying to figure all that out and make sense of everything that I was raised with and grew up with. And so season 3, I feel like, kind of answers the question of those 2, and is kind of the first time, like personally and musically, that I feel like I'm coming to the place where I understand kind of who I am and accept it and all the things that made me, whether I like them or not. Kind of started to embrace it. And so I think, content wise, that's what this EP is. And then musically, the first 2 EPs kind of created a wide lane for myself. The first one was pretty alternative, and then the second one was more rhythmic. Excuse me. And so this third EP is kind of like in between those 2 and kind of draws from both. So yeah, the first single was Corridors, which I remember this was before, because the TikTok thing with Dreams and Fleetwood Mac just happened. Okay. But I remember earlier this year, I was just like, I want to write a song that kind of feels like Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. And like, if I were to do my own spin on that, like, what would that be like? And so Corridors was that. And I wrote that with a guy named Kevin Griffin and Adam Friedman, and it turned out really great. And it's funny, the vocals I actually did all on my iPhone. And we just ran with those. I tracked vocals on a mic, and they just didn't have the same like feeling, same energy and emotion. So we kept those vocals. And then
oh, really? So you kept the iPhone memo recording, huh?
Yeah, dude, the mic on the iPhone is like really good.
Interesting.
And like it compresses it. Like you can turn off the automatic compression, but like it does something to the vocal to where like even if you're singing really loud, it kind of compresses it, but you still get all the liveness of the room that you're in. And everything that's like, the reverb and kind of the room noises. Like, I don't know, just for me, I'm just like, I don't know, I really like this, let's keep it.
Yeah.
And that's what made it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, producers use all these tools, like the telephone or radio effect is a popular effect on vocals. So, might as well just use a real telephone, get the actual effect. But did you say you did that on Corridors?
I did on Corridors, and then the next thing I put out was I'll Stay, which was a ballad. And that one's a special one. I mean, all my songs just come from my life. I just write the things that I've experienced and the things that I know. But I'll Stay was about kind of a little while ago, my wife actually lost her grandfather pretty unexpectedly. And I mean, like, to the point where like we kind of got a text that he was going to the hospital, but it was for something pretty minor. And then like a day or 2 later, like I just remember watching her get a call, and it was just kind of like, hey, like he's actually took a turn for the worse, and he's going to pass away. So you should probably get here like ASAP. So I just remember watching her go through that. And it was kind of the first time that I had watched the person that I love, kind of more than anybody in the world, like experience kind of just like this heartbreak out of nowhere and such just, profound loss. And I didn't realize how helpless I would feel. And it's not to make it, the story about me, but I wanted to help. I wanted to do anything, just kind of make it better, or, just take it away or just do whatever I could. And I couldn't. And it just kind of made me realize that I don't know, man. I think, when people go through things, sometimes like the only thing you can really do is just to be there for them. And that's the best thing. So that's what the song All Stay is about. And so that was the second single. And then we dropped the whole EP.
Yeah, man, it's funny. I was listening to the EP, and it's great, and it's funny, us talking about Nashville and the mix of, well, first of all, the mix of, you mentioned songwriting mixed with production, and the EP's got both. So awesome work, man, and I love that song Corridors. But what's interesting about it is I'm into all sorts of music, rock, pop, indie
Mhm.
pop, rap. And I feel like there's a little bit in the production anyways, or the instrumentation, a little bit of everything in all those songs. But Corridor, I'm like, what is this? Like it sounds like a few things I'd like put in one,
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely added that song to my regular rotation after hearing it.
Thank
So
you, man. I appreciate
loving
that.
it. So Kyd, you've gotten the attention of some huge people, Kevin Kenny from TRL, all these press outlets have been singing your praises. We like to end the interview by asking, if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists, what would it be? Because obviously you're doing something right.
Um, I think the number one piece of advice that I could give anybody is just to, as simple as it is, just don't give up, because it's going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take. Unless you have an overnight TikTok song, and then that's a great problem to have. I hope you navigate it well
Uh-huh.
and turn that into a long sustaining career. But I just think don't give up, man. I think, I don't know, it takes a lot longer than people realize, and you're just going to experience a lot of rejection along the way. And the thing about rejection and creativity is it's tough, because music is expressing yourself, right? For most people, it's like how they express, their thoughts and opinions and their emotions. And when you experience rejection with that, you take it really personal, because it's just like, well, that's a piece of myself that I put out there, and you're basically just stomping on it. So if you can learn to kind of, you know, take that for what it is, and not let it hinder you from going to moving forward, then I think you can really stick and just be in music. So yeah, and I think that's the biggest piece of advice I'd give somebody.
Totally. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny you mentioned Fleetwood Mac and how that song blew up, "Dreams," on TikTok. I feel like that was such a I feel like that was a music lover's song. Everyone, you were already thinking about that song before it blew up on TikTok, like you said. And I feel, it's one of their best songs, I think. But it's interesting how, I think that sound kind of is back right now, and that's why it, combined with a great song from back then, why it blew up on TikTok. But
Dude,
yeah,
that
just
story. Do you know the story of the guy? Like what happened?
I know he put out the song skateboarding, drinking his Ocean
Right.
Spray. I think I heard that Ocean Spray did they give him like a truck or something
He gave
like
him a
that?
truck
Or
and a bunch of cranberry juice. But I guess somebody told me this like a month ago, and they were saying that he basically his car broke down, and he was calling his job saying, "Hey, like my car broke down. I'm gonna be like late to work, or I can't come in." And his boss was just like, "Well, you just better get here, or else, like like you're not gonna have a
Mm.
job." And so he just got out of his car, just grabbed his skateboard and his cranberry juice, and he was just like, "Well, screw it. Like I'm just gonna like skateboard." And
To work or just to not go to work? Do you know that? Was
I
it?
don't I don't know the end of the story. I wish I did,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I just love that the first thing he did was just grab his skateboard, his cranberry juice, and he's like, I'm just gonna skateboard down the freeway, or like
yeah. Make a
this
TikTok.
make
Yeah.
a TikTok and just like chill.
That's awesome. That sounds like some faded stuff right there,
Oh dude, I'm so happy for the guy. Like I hope he has more viral videos. Like I'm so happy to see that.
I guess that makes sense. Is that why they gave him a truck? Because his car's breaking down?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think so.
Wow.
So it's just
Wow.
cool. It's cool to see those kind of stories.
There's this old proverb I heard, and it's kind of like based on like, well, let's wait and see, where it's like, oh, you broke my son broke his leg. Oh, that's too bad. Well, let's wait and see. And then it's like, oh, he was about to get drafted for war, but now
Right.
he's got a broken leg, so he doesn't have to go to war. Oh, great. Well,
True.
let's wait and see. And then so it's
Yeah.
like you never know if things are going to be good or bad, and everything happens for a reason, especially in that guy's case. Look look what happened from a broken down car.
Bringing it backward.